So from a teacher perspective, what are you finding to be some of the benefits of implementing standards-based grading?
Well, I see two benefits. The first benefit is that my students and I, we both know exactly what the content standards are, and we can quickly determine which standards they've mastered and which standards they have not mastered. The second benefit is making grading so much easier, because in the past, I would have to sit there and decide how many points to take off for this mistake or this mistake. And now I can look at it as a whole and decide this assessment of whether it's a task or a problem and determine, have they met the standard, and that we have decided this is meeting the standards, is exceeding, or this is not being met, and we can quickly determine that, and it's so much better than it has been in the past, and this has been beautiful implementing this.
With this grading, kids are still fighting and kids are still interested in learning, because I feel like their grade really reflects how hard they're working and where they really stand. Because when I think of the old style grading, one exam that's from 0 to 100, if they just have a really bad week, something happened in their family, and it's not their time to take that exam, and they get a 0 on it, or a 10%, a 20%, that will hold them at an F or a D range for such a long time.
So the greatest benefit of implementing standards-based grading is that I know where my students are at every day. I don't have to wait for a quiz or an assessment to tell me that so-and-so knows this and so-and-so is still struggling here. It also allows us to really quickly identify what kind of groups we have, so high levels, low levels, and then do some interventions, so break them into groups and specifically target these 6 kids need help with this particular skill. Let's take 10 minutes and do that, while my other groups, my high kids, are working on something that's interesting to them because it's taking them higher, and my other groups are working on something within, the classic term of the zone of proximal development, so there's no, they're not as off task. Even my low kids, or my kids who don't try really hard, I'm giving them something that they're capable of doing, so they're more apt to do it, and they're more apt to gain confidence, which then helps them increase their scores overall, because they feel like they don't feel lost, and they really start to understand, I can do this, and it's slower for them, but that's really helpful and awesome, especially for the kid who feels like math is their Mount Everest and they're never going to get there. So that part's really awesome.
How has standards-based grading helped you to differentiate instruction?
So when I gave a pre-assessment for one of the units I had a good maybe 5 students in my class that basically got an A on the pre-assessment. So I sat there and I was like, wow, if I just teach to them, they're going to be really bored because they already knew this before I even taught anything. So me and Chappelle, we actually came up with an art project that implemented all the transformations that were in that unit, and they had to make an art project. And it wasn't just draw this and you're done. No, they really had to research. They had to make a coordinate plane, and they had to create conceptual art and represent all the transformations, how they did it, and the instructions had to be very clear in order for another student to do it. So I really saw these students light up in the classroom, and it was their time to shine, because they get to use their skills and show me that they know how to do it, rather than just sitting through my class and doodling on their paper, because I'm teaching them stuff they already know. So standard-based grading really helped me push my students go a little further.
Cool. So in standards-based grading, how are you able to ensure that your assessments are reflecting mastery of any particular standard?
We are super intentional in the questions that we choose, and I'll be honest, I was super skeptical of all of this to begin with, especially when it came to assessments. I have a reputation on campus of being a more difficult teacher, and that was something that I wanted to make sure, we cannot just hand them this grade. They need to earn them still, and so we are really specific with this portion of this percentage of our test is going to be a higher level, the DOK 3s and 4s, and this percentage of our test is going to be DOKs 1 and 2, and then we sit and look at the test and say, for a kid who's met the standards, what questions here should they be able to answer correctly? For the kid who's exceeding the standards, we're going to put some really tough questions on the test that we know only those kids are going to get, but what that does is help protect that A, and it also helps protect the B kid and the C kid, and gives that, it doesn't allow them to have such a low grade that they can never recover. So the kid who hasn't met the standard but starts to get closer to meeting the standard, they're going to see that quicker change in their grade, which allows them, gets rid of the super F, so to speak, and allows them to understand that they don't have to give up. We don't get to the end of a semester with 8 weeks to go and they're like, well, I'm going to fail anyway because I have a 20%. That doesn't happen because they're able to show us that they now know it.